Well, good evening, everybody. Good to have everybody in there for the 132nd week that we've done this. My goodness, February 21st, 2021. I see some people joining in the comments section over there. If you join and you want me to know you're there, put something in the comment section because I can't see actually when you join. But if you throw something in the comment section, I'll know I know you're there. And tell you what, good to have everybody there. Somebody give me an A-OK or a thumbs up or something that you can hear me and that you can see me. And I hope you guys are enjoying all the fun tools we have going. I'm hoping that it helps us sort of enliven the experience every week and make it a lot more consumable for everybody. But we have got a great, speaking of Zane, this evening, I'm going to go through some of the normal things that you've come to expect over the last couple of years. My goodness, 132 times we've gotten together to talk about Zane and share things about Zane. And that's really grown into so many other things that we do together as a group that in our efforts really to help others maybe that find themselves in Zane's situation or maybe prevent some of that stuff. And certainly we seek out to thank veterans and service members and let them know, doggone it, that they're appreciated. If we don't do it, who's gonna? And we have a good time with it. We've had a great time with it. You guys have been wonderful teammates in this endeavor that Lori and I have undertaken just to make sure that we're keeping Zane's name alive. I see Jim Miller's in there. Ken says we're good. Todd Hargrave down near Savannah's in there. My Aunt Cindy over in Alabama's there. Good to see you. Another Facebook user. I'm not quite sure who that is, but maybe we can identify that in a little bit. Amy's there from Omaha. Steve Shirley's in there. Lori's in there, just down the hallway from the broadcast studio. Good to have everybody there. We have a special episode this week, and I'm going to try to run through some of the normal things that we go through each week, and then we've got a special guest I'm going to introduce here in just a minute. But we'll be actually seeking to have other guests along the way. I've got an entire page of people that I think you folks would enjoy hearing from that have great perspective or are doing great work like our friend Kelly is and others. And wouldn't it be great if we could just share some best practices and what others are doing? And that's what I hope will happen. We had a couple birthdays this week. Happy birthday to my sister Sharon. That's where my wife has been the last couple of days down there helping my sister celebrate her birthday. She's 11 months younger than me. Isn't that crazy? And then Amanda Duggar, my good friend down near Tampa, it's her birthday today, actually. Today's her birthday, and my sister's is tomorrow. So happy birthday, ladies. I feel privileged to know both of you. I've known my sister her entire life, believe it or not. So how about that? Let's see what else we got coming up this week. Oh, I had a great little encounter with a coworker of mine this week. And he kind of found out about my story a little bit because this last week was the 5th anniversary of Zane's passing and his funeral and whatnot. And a coworker of mine found out and reached out to me, and like a lot of them did, and made a donation to a local veterans agency that works with service dogs there in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. And he said, I'm going to do this in memory of your son. And I thought that was awesome. Wouldn't that be great if everybody did something like that? That's a wonderful thing. So thank you, Joel, for that. And speaking of work, I've mentioned a few times we've got a veterans organization, veterans employee resource group at work, not uncommon for large companies. And so we're an organized group of ruffians that have all served and other patriots in our company that want to understand better about veterans. And anyway, we're having we do a variety of events to raise awareness about a bunch of things. And we've got a lunch and learn. I think it's on Wednesday. and a panel of veterans that are going to talk about their service and how their service in the military translated to the civilian workforce. And I've been asked to be a panelist, so I'll get an opportunity to share some cool things about that. So I'm looking forward to it. I'll give you guys a report on that next week. Pitchers and catchers reported. Let's see, last Friday, I think position players report tomorrow. I think they started showing up today. And of course, down near Tampa is where the Braves' new ballpark is, down there, Port Charlotte area, kind of near Sarasota, south of Tampa. And I had the opportunity to go see one spring training game last year before the coronavirus hit. And that was the only ball game I got to last year. And you guys know I'm a big ball game guy. I go to a lot of games. And but anyway, wasn't able to. But spring training starts. I'm excited about that. We'll see what the season shapes up to be. So with that, Kelly, I don't know if you remember, but every week we have a hat of the week, because I'm a ball cap guy, and I always try to wear a ball cap that sort of has something to do with something that we've been doing this last week or next week, and that's why this is the hat of the week. This is the inaugural season of the new ballpark down there south of Tampa last year. So that is the hat of the week. Ken Pesic always enjoys trying to anticipate what my hat of the week has to do with, and maybe I beat him to the punch. I'm not watching the comments, but I will here in a minute. Let's see, a couple other things to get through before we bring our guest in. Not all of them great, but I'll start out with the great stuff. But we had some cemetery visits. We've been tracking those for a couple of years now, and it's turned out to be a wonderful adventure for people to explore a veteran cemetery and then tell us about it, share pictures and experiences about that. And we track them every week, and we are up to 367. This small group of people, we've got the Speaking of Zane group is about 100 or so people. And over the last couple of years, this relatively small group of people, we've made 367 visits to a veteran cemetery. That's great stuff. We've done 126 different cemeteries. I love tracking that. I've got a nice little map that I keep updated, and it's just real fun. Well, Daryl, our friend up near St. Louis, he'll be late today, I think. He's got something going at church this evening, but he visited Jefferson Barracks National Cemetery there near St. Louis, where his wife is buried. And then Lori, on her way back from seeing my parents and my sister, she stopped off. I didn't even know she was doing this. I'm glad she did. She made some really cool little videos while she was out there. She stopped off at Andersonville National Cemetery, which is part of Andersonville State Park, which is on the site of Andersonville, what was it, Lori? Prison, I guess. It was a Civil War prison camp. Just a fascinating piece of history there. Lori stopped off there today. So we had 2 cemetery visits this week, at least that I'm aware of. And then moving on to the Thank a Vet Challenge. We had 4 that I know of. I know we always have more than we track, but the ones that I know about, Ken down there in Orlando, he thanked an Army Desert Storm vet. How did he know he was an Army Desert Storm? He had a Desert Storm hat on. That's how. And of course, Ken is an Air Force vet, so they had a little mutual exchange there. And then my Aunt Paula, who recently just moved down to the Tampa area. Aunt Paula, I hope you're in here tonight, because I know you have been looking forward to getting out to my Warriors place since you're in Florida now. So I'm going to introduce you to the lady who you're going to ultimately get an opportunity to meet here in a minute. But Aunt Paula thanked 2 Army vets and an Air Force vet this week. So what if my addition is right? That's 2, 3, 4 new ones this week. So right at about just under 2 years since we started tracking these Thank a Vets, we've thanked 706 veterans or military members just in our daily lives, at work, at school, on the run, at the mall, at the Kroger, at the Lowe's. And just think about that. 706 times a veteran or a military member has heard from someone, thank you, or I appreciate you. And wow, you don't know what difference that could make. You could have just made somebody's whole day when you do that. So thank you guys for doing that with us. We feel privileged that you guys are out there working right alongside us. John Evol's in there. John is a battle buddy of Zane's. Always good to have him in there. Brenda Lusk up in Michigan. My mother-in-law is there out in Oklahoma. Hopefully digging out of the ice and snow. Matt Aaron. Hey, Matt, are you back in Michigan? Matt's in the Michigan National Guard. He has been deployed to D.C., and I don't know if he's back or not. My buddy up in Nashville, Doc Collier, is in there, in and out. Good co-worker of mine. My Aunt Cindy's in there. I think I mentioned that. Let's see. McKenna is in there, childhood friend of Zane and the kids. All right, I think I'm caught up on who all's out there. So that was the Cemetery Challenge, the Thank a Vet Challenge. And the next thing we always talk about, heroes that maybe we lost this last week. And, we've debated, well, I've debated in my mind over and over again, whether this is appropriate to highlight folks that we've lost over the last week. You guys said overwhelmingly yes. If we don't, who's gonna? So anytime we see that we've lost someone in service to the country, we highlight it. And unfortunately, we did have the loss of a couple of airmen. I think it was just yesterday near Montgomery, Alabama. We lost a T-38 trainer with and the instructor pilot was a U.S. Air Force pilot, and the student pilot was a Japanese student pilot. The American airman was called Scott Ames Jr. He's from Indiana. They were based out of Columbus Air Force Base, Mississippi, and just a sad, unfortunate thing. We talk about it every week. I mean, combat inherently, by definition, is dangerous, but also preparing for it is. It's you just don't know. It's a fast. The military is fast paced. It's on the ragged edge sometimes. Even the preparation, it's just a sad thing. One other thing I wanted to highlight has to do with the military. It has to do with Tampa again. Lori and I ought to have a part-time. We ought to have a house there. I tell you, as much as I talk about Tampa and have friends there and co-workers. The reason I do is because for a couple of years I was going down there every week for work. But anyway, in the Tampa area, there's just a guy, a sweetheart of a guy that was a Tampa Bay Buccaneer wide receiver, and he was unfortunately found dead this week. Vincent Jackson. And he has an organ. He comes from a military family. Both of his parents were in the military. He founded, when he retired from the NFL, he founded an organization called Jackson in Action, and did just wonderful things for military families. He was always out at the base there doing different things, and just a philanthropist at heart. And unfortunately, he passed away this week, which was just 38 years old, I think. And I had the privilege of meeting him. I guess it's maybe 3 years ago. My coworker Amanda, who I mentioned, had him send me a video. This is before the whole cameo kick that's been going on since the coronavirus. But Vincent sent me a nice little video saying, "Hey, Guy, I appreciate your family service and this and that," and that was enough. And then the next thing I know, Amanda is able to work it out so that Vincent gave me this very nice jersey, autographed jersey, which I'll cherish forever. And the coincidence is, and you guys know, I do not believe in coincidences. There are no such things. Well, the very day that Amanda gave me that jersey from Vincent, our team was all together, and we went out to dinner that night. And it just so happens, well, it doesn't just so happen, but Vincent was an entrepreneur, had some restaurants and real estate business, and he had a restaurant. We went to dinner at the restaurant, and it was a change. We hadn't planned to go there. We went to dinner, and of course, he doesn't spend all of his time there. He has people that runs these things for him. Well, we're in the middle of dinner. Well, who shows up but Vincent Jackson? And the very day that I got the jersey from Amanda, so Amanda was able to introduce me to Vincent, and we had a good chat. And in fact, while Vincent was there and we were chatting, my son Jackson, who was in Air Force basic training at the time, got to break away for a phone call and actually called me that same night. Anyway, it was just an interesting occurrence, but it's just a shame. What a great guy he was, and did a lot of great work in the Tampa area. Very philanthropic, and he'll certainly be missed. Okay, let's see. Daryl is here. I mentioned Daryl earlier. My Aunt Mary is here. Matt is still in DC. Well, Matt, be careful. Thank you for what you're doing there in the National Guard. Matt was another one that served with Zane in Iraq, and has continued his service in the National Guard. All right. Well, let's see. I think I have made it through my normal stuff. I want to get on to the meat of the show here. And it's going to be a wonderful story. I know you folks have heard me talk about this, and heard Lori and I just talk about our friend Kelly Kowall, who we've had the opportunity to get to know a little bit over the last year or two. And when I reached out to her and said, "Hey, I'm thinking of doing some guests on our show and whatnot. Would you be interested?" In fact, she was the very first one I thought of, and because she has joined us here on Sunday nights before. And but now that we have these great tools that I'm using, and we're able to bring people in together and whatnot, I thought it was a great time to start doing some of that stuff. I'm going to add Kelly to the stream here. Hello, Kelly.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. So good to have you here. Let me tell a little bit about how I come to know you in the first place. Again, I was going to say it was quite by accident, but I don't believe in accidents or coincidences. And I was in Tampa. A good friend of mine, Robert Resch, who's a coworker of mine, a good friend, him and his wife Debbie are great friends of Lori and I. They live about a mile or so from my Warriors place. Well, this was probably a couple years ago now, I guess. But I was in town, and Robert said, "Well, come over to the house. We'll take the boat out. We'll barbecue, whatever." I said, "Okay." So I get in the rental car and drive out to Ruskin, the beautiful metropolis of Ruskin, Florida, and I drive to Robert's house. And I had been down that road several times to see him before, but for some reason, out of my left periphery, as I drive past, I see this sign. It's got a white background and a logo and stuff, and it says "My Warriors Place." And I don't know if I'm hyper tuned to vocabulary, certain words or whatever, but I saw Warriors, and I sort of parked that in the back of my brain, didn't pursue it. And sometime later, I said, I'm gonna look that thing up. I don't know what that's all about. So I did a search on it. I found the website and eventually the Facebook page of My Warriors Place. Anyway, I found out about my Warriors Place. I'm not going to tell a lot about it now because Kelly's going to tell about it. But that's how I found Kelly, because when I started digging through the website, I said, I got to meet this lady. And I think I emailed Kelly, and then we eventually talked on the phone, and she says, "Yeah, well, come on out and I'll show you around." And I did that, and wow, I was blown away. And then I've been out there a couple times since, and I've taken my team in Tampa out there. We spent a whole day out there putting the roof on a gazebo. Just had a wonderful time. Lori and I have been out there. We were out there last summer. We stayed there. We look forward to doing that again. But I got to know a little bit about Kelly by reading her book, which I encourage all of you to get a copy of. But it tells just this phenomenal story. I read the book before I met Kelly face to face. So when you read that intimate details about somebody before you meet them, you finally meet them, it's almost like you already know them, right? And Kelly and I, hit it off right out of the gate, and having the common thing of losing a son and all of that, of course, makes us sort of akin, right? And So that's how I stumbled on Kelly. And when over the course of time, you heard me talk about all the things that have developed, but now I have the opportunity to bring Kelly on to tell this wonderful story in person, well, virtually. And there's really kind of two. Kelly and I were talking a little bit earlier today. There's really kind of two sections of it, and we've coordinated kind of a segue into that. But Kelly, without me continuing to babble there, I'm just going to turn it over to you and let you tell what's on your heart about your son Corey and everything you've been through since that tragic day.
Well, thank you. Nobody's ever prepared for that knock on the door. And, prior to his death, if you would have asked me if they can reach out to you in some manner, communicate with you, I don't know that I would have, I wouldn't have said yes and I wouldn't have said no. But for those of us that have lost a loved one, we do know that they can communicate with us in various ways. And like you said, the sometimes too many things happen that you stop going, this can't be just a coincidence, because it's just too many times that the right people or the right things were put in the right place for everything to happen. And of course, that is what happened with me. My son started reaching out to me, and at first I was a little scared. I thought maybe I was going insane, but finally figured out, no, he really is contacting me, and he had a very clear message in what he wanted me to do. And my Warriors Place started with just the purchase of a boat and taking out veterans and military service members and families of the fallen out to some of his favorite places where we used to go. And all these miracles just started happening over and over. And of course, that's what my book is about, these different miracle stories that have happened that led us up into creating my Warriors Place. And I mean, when we first got my Warriors Place, when I say Sanford and Ston's junkyard looked better than this place, that's an understatement. I mean, it was with drug addict squatters living there, and windows were busted out. But we had less than $500 in our bank account when we purchased my Warriors Place. But I just had the faith in the community. I had the faith of God and all those others up in heaven, just really making sure that we had what we needed to create more Warriors Place. And it's just truly, truly amazing what we have now there. You want to show them the video real quick of the beauty of my Warriors Place?
Yeah, let me do that. Share. Make sure I share the right screen.
That's one thing, the rainbows. I've never seen so many rainbows there at that place. It's truly amazing.
This makes me want to go back tomorrow. It's just so beautiful.
It's truly a special place. I mean, the pictures don't really do it justice, even because there's just this special feeling. You can attest to that. Uh,
Yes.
there's just this calmness that you get, and I hear that over and over and over again by people that come out there. Is there's just this special feeling that they've never really felt before. And so I do encourage anybody that is down in the area. I did. We're ready to have you come back, Lori. Um, but um, you know, as I said, the you know, consequences or the you know, that coincidences, I should say, of things that happen. I mean, I'm already starting to write book 2 because the miracles keep happening. And in fact, you know, sometimes I think people uh, get so caught up in their day-to-day life, they stop seeing what's really happening, or fight things that are happening, and they are not able to then fully see what can come to fruition. But I've just tried to learn to be so open and just let things happen. I know if it's meant to be, it will happen. And it's just like we had the first book that I wrote had a ending where it kind of left you on a cliffhanger as to what happened with this boat that I had. And we traded it in so that we could get a bigger boat. And the boat that we got needed to have a lot of work done on it. And we found a gentleman that was highly recommended by several different people. And he agreed to do all the work with no pay, but we just had to buy the materials, the parts, that kind of thing. And ended up giving him $6,000 for his list of parts that he needed. And long story short, he ended up scamming us. And we ended up with this boat that was in worse shape than we took it to him. And we actually had to sue him. And although we won a judgment against him, you know, we'll probably never see the money. But I one day was a short time later at a bank and picked up a newspaper, and on the front page was a story about a gentleman who was the president of a luxury pontoon boat company up in Michigan. And he had a house, a condo down in Clearwater, and they had built a tri-tune, and they were going to drive it down, launch it at his condo, and then motor it down to the Keys and then over to Cuba and back. And I thought, wow, if they could do that, wonder what they're going to do with that boat when they get back, because we really would like to have had a tri-tune. They're smoother in the water and would be better for wheelchairs. So I called him, and I had to leave a message, but about a week later, he got back with me, asked why I was calling. And of course, I wanted to know first whether he made it to Cuba or not. And he said, oh, yes, he made it to Cuba. But then he got back to what I needed. And I explained what had happened with our boat, and was hoping they could maybe help us with the boat. And he said, well, how much money do you think you can raise? And I said, well, maybe $10,000. Now, I knew the boat that I was asking him for was probably a $65,000 boat, but I was just hoping that maybe he could do something for maybe 20 or 30,000. And but I started at 10, and he said, you know, we've had a good year. If you can raise $10,000, I think we can get you a boat. And I got off the phone call very excited, but I had not one penny to put towards $10,000. And the next night I had to go do a speaking engagement, and they asked me to wait after I got done talking, to wait until their meeting was done. They came out and handed me a check for $5,000 and told me I could do anything I needed to do with that $5,000. And I drove home thinking, oh my gosh, I've got half of the $10,000. And the very next night, I got a phone call from a gentleman who said, "You probably don't remember me, but we met about 3 months ago. And my grandfather started a foundation, and every year my mother, my brother, and I all get together and each choose a charity to give money to. And the charity I chose was not able to come up with the paperwork needed to be able to present it for funding. And I know it's last minute, but would you be able to come up with the paperwork I need?" And he said, "It's the money is usually right around $5,000." And so he told me what I needed to get him. And I said, "Yeah, I can get you all of that information." And he goes, "Well, if we were going to give you the money, what would you spend the money on?" And I tried to be practical and say, "Well, we're building this house. We could use a wheelchair ramp, or, it needs a kitchen." And he was like, "No, no." And then I finally said, "Well, there's this boat." And he's like, "Yes, tell me about the boat." And I told him, and he said, "Well, if we gave you $5,000, how are you going to get the other 5,000?" And I said, "It just so happens I already have that $5,000. And he said, "Well, can you get the gentleman to put that in writing on their letterhead that he'll sell the boat to you for $10,000? And I said, "Sure, I think so." And so, I called him the next day, and the very next day he had it in my email box for me, a letter stating that on his letterhead, and I was able to get everything. So in less than a week, from the day I talked to the gentleman the very first time, we had raised $10,000, and were able to get a brand new wheelchair accessible pontoon boat within 3 months. And it was just lots of blessings. It's just,
It's amazing, and the story of Kelly, her son Corey, and ultimately My Warrior's Place is just threaded with occurrences like that. Kelly, Corey was killed in 2009, right?
yes,
In
September.
Afghanistan. How long after his death did My Warrior's Place become a thing?
Well, we actually purchased the property in May of 2012. So we're looking 10, 11, so 2.5 years from when he died, approximately, that My Warrior's Place, we
Okay.
purchased the first part, and which was 2 acres. And then 2 years, almost 2.5 years ago, we purchased the front part, which is another 3 acres.
Okay, so there was about a 3-year or so window. Now, in that 3-year window, how far along after Corey's death did, and I've read the book, so I know the answers to some of this, but how far after Corey's death did you begin to get this idea, or did Corey begin to present you with these ideas about having a place like this?
Um, like I said, it started out, he just wanted me to buy a boat and do the boating trips. But those boating trips, when I did them for about 10 months, I started noticing that some of the veterans I was taking out were still really struggling with the loss of their brothers in arms, and also the life losses that they go through. And so I just wanted to be able to refer them to a program, kind of like, for the families of the fallen. You immediately think, "Oh, have you heard of TAPS?" And you refer them to TAPS, because they get it better than any grief group out there. I mean, not that other grief groups aren't good. It's just that TAPS is really tuned in to those who have lost a loved one that has served. And so I wanted to just refer them to a program like TAPS, but that was specifically for veterans and military service members. Problem was, I couldn't find anything. And so that kind of then morphed its way into, okay, if I don't do it, who is going to do it? And creating a grief program, which we did. And then after we got the grief program created, it was like a hotel setting, which was our original thought, that we would just go around the country to hotels close by bases and large veteran population and do the program, and it just didn't feel like the right thing to do, which then set us out on finding the property that we now have. And you know, again, when you just open yourself up, those answers will come. It's sometimes not the answer you want, you know, and sometimes bad things have to happen for good things to happen, just like the boat story. I mean, I was devastated when we lost that boat, but at the same time, something so much better came out of it. You know, and like I say in the book, you know, I think that was probably one of my biggest lessons learned, is that when something bad happens, we may not realize why it had to happen, but generally there is a good reason and something good will come out of it. You've just got to let it run its course.
It is amazing. And that's true in all aspects of our lives. I mean, you know, the more I mature, and Lori will say, is that possible? I think, but I start to think, well, I'm not going to fight this too hard, because there's a blessing on the other side of it. There's something, you know, it's just, you don't know what the master plan is, right? And it does take a little patience, and you know, an optimistic attitude is very helpful. But on the topic of the boats, we got about 20 minutes, and I want you to have all of that. On the topic of the boats, it's such a unique place, right on the water. So it's very suited for those types of activities. So speaking of boats, maybe jump forward and tell us about the story about how Corregidor came into the picture.
Yeah, that's another one. I was actually a Gold Star father that knew about the Mike Rowe show on Facebook Live, Returning the Favor. I had never seen that show before. I didn't even know it existed. But he went to their website and told them about me and my Warrior's Place, and they contacted me. Now, of course, when they contacted me, they were using fake names, fake business. I mean, if they chose you, they didn't want you to know this was Mike Rowe's show and that he was coming. And boy, they're really good at lying. Oh my gosh. I had no clue. In fact, if anybody watches the video and you see me shaking his hand saying, "Oh, it's so nice to meet you," I am shitting my pants. I had no clue he was coming. And then after he was there, and you know, we had to stop in between takes, you know, to go from one thing to the next. I'm asking people, what's going on? What's going on? And nobody would tell me anything at all. But then again, I don't think a lot of people knew. I know his production crew knew, but and I think there were one or two people associated with my Warrior's Place that kind of knew what was going to happen, but most of us didn't know, and I certainly was clueless. But there was a boat company down there in St. Petersburg that actually custom built a fishing boat for us, because that's what we were needing, is a fishing boat. And it's a gorgeous boat, and it gets used a lot, and just so blessed.
And it's the kind of vessel where there's a lot of deck space, right? You can put wheelchairs up in it.
Yes, we can.
Things like that.
Yeah, wheelchair on there, and we can get them in and have them go fishing. And so it's again, just, you know, if somebody would have told me 10 years ago this is what we were going to have at this point, I would have said, there's just no way. We have no money, we have nothing, and I just don't see how it can do it. But I mean, it's just truly amazing what can happen, you know. Yeah. and just
The stories that, I mean, there are dozens of stories like that through, the Corey Kowall My Warriors Play story. It's threaded with things like that. It's just fascinating to me. And what about the name Corregidor? There's a whole story behind that.
Yeah, there is. My dad gave my son Corey the nickname Corregidor because he was a Vietnam and World War II history buff. And my son used to ask he called him Pop Pop, why do you call me that? And my dad said, oh, one of these days you'll figure it out. And he did. In his senior year of high school, he finally kind of figured out what Corregidor was. And so, it was nice that he knew that. But when we were trying to figure out what we were going to call our grief program, we got to talking, they were like, well, why don't you name it after your son? And I'm like, no, I don't, I really don't want to name it. That doesn't really, and then they were like, well, did he have a nickname? And I was like, yeah, Corregidor. And they like, well, what does that mean? And I was like, well, it's this island in the South Pacific that was very strategic for us to hold. And the Japanese cut off the water and food supply, and they ended up having to surrender. But MacArthur felt like it was one that we had to take back. It was that important. And so we did go back in, and with a lot of lives lost, a lot of bloodshed, but we did regain control of the island Corregidor. And, I mean, I think that's that triumph after defeat. Mm-hmm. And, it's everything that My Warriors Place and our program is all about. And that, bad things can happen, but you can overcome and you can come back strong. And yeah, there's a picture of it flashing up. And it is truly a wonderful boat, and we get a lot of use out of it. But I mean, that Corregidor is the epitome of what we do out there and what we want the place to stand for.
Yeah, just a phenomenal story. Now, so Kelly, over the course of the last 2012, I guess that would be coming up on 9 years that My Warriors Place has existed in some form. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole story behind what you inherited there when you arrived, and that alone, the state that it was in, would be discouraging to most, right?
Yeah, I had a board member that said, what part of less than $500 in your bank account do you not understand? And if you move forward with this, I resign. And he did. He resigned. So because he couldn't see it, he didn't have the faith that it could come to fruition. And I think so many people stop themselves short before really being willing to take that leap of faith that things will work out.
Yeah, and so fast forward to today, Kelly. You really inherited basically a waterside lot that had its own issues, yes, some of which you've described. But maybe describe today what the facility My Warriors Place is, and what's the day-to-day function, and what are some of the characteristics of the property, and some of the that have developed over the course of the years.
Well, I tell people, think of it this way. If you would be in a hotel for any reason, or on a friend's couch, that's probably why you would come to My Warriors Place. It's either for vacation, it's for a respite, it's because you need a place to heal, it's because you need emergency shelter for some reason. We have a gentleman there right now who found himself in a very bad situation. He's a veteran, 100% disabled, and he has a 16-year-old daughter with him, but he literally had 2 days notice that he had to get out of where he was staying. And so, I mean, he would, I could hear it in his voice when he talked to me. He had his service dog, his 16-year-old daughter. And I mean, the thought of we're going to be under a bridge somewhere, or we're going to be separated, or, living in my car, and somebody told him about us, and he's staying with us right now. And he's so grateful and so thankful that my Warriors Place was there for him. And that's just one of many, many, many stories of people that needed help that we were able to help. And then we have those that just come. We just recently had a call from a young veteran who was really struggling, and he says he lived in Orlando, not that far away, but he had been to my Warriors Place because he had actually volunteered there several months prior. And he said, I'm struggling right now, and I can't think of a better place to come to than my Warriors Place. And he stayed with us for almost 2 weeks. But when he left, he was in such a better place mentally than when he came. And, he told me, he said, this place really saved my life. And, I'm lucky enough sometimes to hear people say that, but I know that there's a lot of times I don't hear it, but I know it happens.
Amen. Yeah.
So
that's kind of what we were talking about with the Thank a Vet challenge. You don't know what impact that could have had on. So you could have stopped somebody from doing something tragic, right?
Yeah.
Just now they know someone gives a damn, right?
Yeah.
And so you're right. There's, for everyone that you've heard a thank you or this helped me, there's 10 others that you didn't hear, right? But that just an amazing place. The thing I love, and Kelly, the way Kelly's describing some of the things, is it's not just locked in on one thing. That place can be used as a vacation, as a respite, as a place of last resort for someone that doesn't have a home tomorrow. The flexibility that Kelly has and her board and how they use My Warriors Place to help people is, to me, one of the most phenomenal things about it. And you mentioned the dog, the service dog. Kelly, they even have a place where a veteran can come and get free dog food for their dogs, and they just have to know what the code is on the shed. And it's just the application of this place can be as broad as you might imagine. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah. And, as many different things as we do, you would think that it would be very, very difficult to juggle all these balls, but it's almost like they're all intertwined, because no matter why you come to My Warriors Place, you've got that camaraderie of others that have been there or have, they understand, they get it, whether they're a Gold Star family member, whether they're a veteran themselves or active duty, law enforcement, firefighter, our family member of, they understand, the sacrifices that are made. So, it's one of those things where it just has this way of being. I always tell people My Warriors Place has this magical way of being whatever somebody needs it to be at any given time.
That's a good way to look at it. I tell you, even it becomes almost a destination place for people that want to give back. I mean, like my team at work that Amanda and I led, we brought 20 people out there to spearhead this roof on the gazebo. And there's organizations and outfits that are looking for ways to contribute and give back. And My Warrior Place is the beneficiary of a lot of that. But at the same time, this is one of those, you don't know the impact it could have on someone. I've had several people that the group that Amanda and I brought out, Kelly, said, I had no idea. They're not military affiliated. They don't have veterans in their family or whatever. I had no idea that a place like this was even warranted. I had no idea of the kind of work, so they got a blessing by going to help at My Warriors Place. It's just it's an interesting phenomenon for sure.
Yes. Yes. And that happens too with, you know, a lot of times those that are staying with us will share their story with somebody like one of your workers that came out, which has even a bigger impact on them, I think, than too. You know, it's just, I don't know, something about uh, when volunteers come out and do things, you know, it just helps to reinforce that people aren't just saying thank you for your service. They're willing to step up and roll up their sleeves and get dirty and do something that is really truly, you know, thanking the veteran or active duty.
Absolutely. Yeah, just what a great point. I want to see if anybody has any questions for Kelly. Put them in the comments section. I'm not seeing a whole lot of comments here. I was wondering if it was still working, but if anybody has any questions for Kelly about her son Corey, about some of the miracles that have happened along the way, there's a gazillion examples of the how Corey has interacted from the beyond. It's just some amazing stories. And but anyway, if anybody has any questions, we've got another couple of minutes, and feel free. Don't be bashful about throwing them in there. I see Ted up in North Carolina has joined us, and I might have missed a couple of others. But I'll start with another question. So now I've lost it. But so Kelly, do you? I'm sure that you and your team, your board, you kind of along the way track. You know, what do you do? I'm just wondering, can you look back and sort of quantify the impact that you've had on veterans, their families? Is there any way to even quantify numbers? How many people have stayed there? How many people have participated in a program at My Warrior's Place? Are we in the thousands now?
Actually, I just had to crunch the numbers for a grant that we're writing, and we have actually had over 47,000 veterans, active duty, law enforcement, firefighters, and their families come through. I mean, that's over 47,000. I was just shocked.
That's amazing. Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. Well, I tell you, we're my friend Ken, who's an Air Force vet over near Orlando. He says would love to come visit sometime. Well, here's what Lori and I are thinking about doing. We want to get back down there. I'm not quite sure when we're going to be able to, and we want to put together another work group. So let's stay in touch about something that needs to be done or a project that we can help with. And I'm going to extend it beyond my work family to my Speaking of Zane family, because there's a lot of them that live in the area. Maybe we could come and help with some kind of project. And Ken would be one of those guys to come over from Orlando. So we'll stay in touch on that.
And I said, Lori asked when the new second book's going to be out. I'm working on it. But as I was telling Guy today, I'm working also on a second book so I'm working on two books at the same time. And so I'm hoping maybe sometime at the end of this year, first part of next year, maybe I'll have that second book out. And then also this other book. Don't know how quickly I'll get it done. You'll have to ask Guy about this other book. He can explain it. It's a little lengthy to go into, but the idea that we've run past people on this book has been an overwhelming thumbs up. And so we're really excited another writer and I are working on it together.
That's awesome. So the second book will continue the Corey and My Warrior's Place story from where the first book left off. Mm-hmm. And Kelly and I were talking earlier today, and there are so many other miracles that have occurred along the way that, you know, Kelly feels obligated to get them on paper and share them. And then she sprung this other book on me, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. But I'll tell Lori about it tonight. But it's just a phenomenal concept that she has, that it's the book is it doesn't chronicle a real life event necessarily, but it's a fiction, but it's it's meant it's meant to
Inspire.
inspire is a good word. In the way that Kelly, I mean, it's multi-threaded. If you love very complex and intricate storylines, you're going to love this book. I don't even know if you have a working title yet, Kelly, but just a great concept.
Well, we don't have it nailed down. We've been tossing around some names. One of them is grief tags. So I don't know. We're just we're still working on the title, but we've got a good outline of the book itself, and so now we're going back and putting meat on the bones, so to speak. So we'll see what
Awesome.
happens.
Well, I can't wait to read it, and I can't wait to get back down there. I know if I told Lori, let's get up tomorrow and drive to Ruskin, it would be no problem to clear the calendar and head on down there. But we honestly cannot wait to get back down there. And we stayed there, guys. We went down there and stayed 2 or 3 nights. And you talk about just detaching from the rat race. I mean, that's the vibe that you get when you walk in there on this property, and it's just a disconnect. And a couple of guys that Kelly had working there. Kelly wasn't there when we got there. It was late in the afternoon, early evening, almost dusk. And before we could even get our stuff unpacked in the cottage there, a couple of the guys had a fishing pole in my hands, and we were out there on the dock fishing. I mean, it's just an amazing place for anybody. What's that?
Fish lights now.
Oh, you do? Okay, great.
Yeah, so you can see the snook coming up right to the lights.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, just it's such a calming place, and when you walk the property there, if you didn't get the personalized tour from Kelly and you walk the property on your own, you get to discover things on your own and little nooks and crannies and this and that. It's just an amazing place that, Kelly has turned the tragedy of losing her son into something that is going to live on and help 47,000 other people. Who knows, right? And I love the message about, if I don't do it, who's going to do it? And if I don't start now, I'm never going to start. And it's just such a great story, no matter what you're going through in your life. Not very much, matches the loss of a son. But we all deal with things in our life, and the fundamental messages that Kelly's story naturally tells can be applied in so many ways. It's just you can tell I'm passionate about it. I've grown to really love Kelly and what she's doing there. And the last visit, Lori and I got to spend some time with Kelly, and it was just so special. And we cannot wait to get back down there. And even watching from afar, just watching the good work that's occurring there kind of gives you a nice warm fuzzy, even if you're not the recipient, just watching and knowing that veterans, wounded warriors, their families have a place that they can go and disconnect, and even, through Kelly and her network, even get the help that they need. You heard Kelly talking about the connections and this and that, and she is very well wired in the Tampa, and especially the Tampa area, but nationally even, with the connections that are needed for the VA and for, shelters and for, everything you can imagine to help, steer and guide somebody based on the specific need that they've got. And it's an amazing story that takes an amazing woman who had an amazing son. And I'm proud to know you, Kelly. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Speaking of Zane. We'll hope you come back again and give us updates periodically. We would love that.
Yes, and I don't know if you heard, but Facebook has discontinued Mike Rowe's show. they're not going to renew it, which is just so sad. So
Not a shame. Yeah. We talked about that last week or the week before. And, Mike has such a great attitude about it. He says, I just got fired. He says, I don't think they canceled me. I just got fired. And, but some other outlet, I'm sure, will pick that up. It's just too good, not to.
And it's in such a time when we really need to be able to see these feel good stories that
There's no doubt about it.
Are making a positive difference in this world. And so,
Yep. We'll look forward to that. But what a special day to get to meet him. That was wonderful. Every time I think the video of it edited down and published, I think was 18 or 28 minutes or something like that. Very brief, but it really captured the work that you're doing there and the story. And Mike's one of my all-time favorites. So that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Kelly.
Thank you for having me. Night all.
All right. Great.
Have a good week coming up. Anyways, I hope for those that are in the snow that it warms up.
Yeah, we got a lot of them. That Omaha folks got another 6 inches or so today. So
come to my Warriors place.
Come on down. Come to Ruskin, Florida.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kelly. We'll see you again next time. And for everybody else, have a great week. We'll see you next week on Speaking of Zane.